When 11-year-old Emily's shocking pregnancy came to light, Detective Harris and Officer Ramirez were plunged into a nightmare that no one in Matlock could have imagined. What they uncovered about the third suspect would leave the entire town in disbelief. The town of Matlock had always been quiet, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and children played freely in the streets without fear. Life followed a predictable rhythm, and the community prided itself on being safe and tight-knit. But everything changed the day authorities uncovered the shocking news. An 11-year-old girl, a child still in the delicate stage of innocence, was pregnant. The revelation rippled through the town like a violent storm, leaving disbelief, fear, and anger in its wake. Families whispered behind closed doors, friends stared at one another with suspicion, and the sense of security that Matlock had always known seemed to vanish overnight. The girl's family was devastated, unable to comprehend how such a tragedy could touch their lives. Her parents, overwhelmed with sorrow and confusion, clung to each other as they sought answers, desperate to understand what had happened and who could have inflicted such harm. Investigators moved quickly, knowing the urgency of the situation. Social workers became involved, ensuring the child's immediate safety, while police began piecing together the events that led to her condition. They interviewed teachers, classmates, and family members, searching for any clue that could explain how an 11-year-old had become the victim of a crime so heinous. Every detail mattered, and every lead was followed. But early indications suggested the case was far more complicated than anyone had imagined. In the early days of the investigation, the atmosphere in Matlock was tense. Parents began questioning the safety of schools and playgrounds, worried that predators might be lurking where children were meant to be protected. Teachers and school administrators were shaken, scrambling to provide support while cooperating with law enforcement. The town's police chief, a figure known for calm leadership, appeared in public briefings, assuring residents that the investigation was active and that no stone would be left unturned. Yet, despite the reassurances, the community's anxiety grew. Rumors spread quickly, fueled by fear and a desperate need to make sense of the incomprehensible. As authorities collected evidence, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. The girl's interactions, both online and in person, revealed moments of contact with individuals who should have been strangers to her. Digital footprints, school attendance records, and neighborhood observations provided pieces of a larger puzzle that investigators had only begun to assemble. While the town speculated and demanded answers, detectives quietly worked behind the scenes, analyzing every detail with precision. The investigation highlighted the fragile line between normalcy and hidden danger, exposing how even the most ordinary communities could harbor unimaginable secrets. Throughout the ordeal, the girl remained at the center of it all, a symbol of innocence lost, and a reminder of the urgent need for justice. Her story was a grim awakening for Matlock, shattering illusions of safety and forcing residents to confront the harsh realities that could exist even in the most peaceful towns. Every step taken by law enforcement was a race against time, a quest to uncover the truth and ensure that the perpetrator would be held accountable. By the end of the first week, the town had changed forever, and what had once been a quiet, predictable community now faced a new reality. Vigilance, awareness, and the stark understanding that darkness could exist even in the most familiar places. As the investigation in Matlock continued, the case grew increasingly complex. Initial inquiries had focused on two suspects, individuals whose connections to the girl seemed plausible at first glance. Authorities had spent days gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and tracing every interaction that might shed light on the crime. Yet despite their efforts, a sense of incompleteness lingered. Certain details did not fit the expected patterns, and investigators began to suspect that someone previously overlooked, might be involved. The idea was unsettling, but it soon became impossible to ignore. The breakthrough came quietly, almost unexpectedly. Authorities identified a third individual whose presence in the girl's life had gone unnoticed by neighbors and friends. Unlike the first two suspects, this person had maintained a careful facade, blending seamlessly into the community. Neighbors described them as ordinary, unremarkable, someone who could walk down the streets of Matlock without drawing attention. Yet beneath this ordinary exterior lay evidence of a calculated and deliberate pattern of behavior that connected them to the girl. Digital records, messages, and subtle interactions painted a picture of manipulation that was both deliberate and disturbing. Investigators realized that the web surrounding the girl's situation was far wider and more sinister than anyone had imagined. As police gathered evidence against the third individual, a series of disturbing details began to emerge. Surveillance footage placed them near locations the girl frequented, sometimes coinciding with unexplained absences or unusual activity. Forensic analysis of electronic devices revealed conversations and interactions that were inappropriate, secretive, and deeply troubling. Every new discovery raised more questions than answers, forcing detectives to reconsider the timeline of events and the role of each person involved. The community, meanwhile, remained unaware of the full scope of the investigation, but rumors began to circulate, sparking fear and speculation. The realization that a hidden predator had existed undetected in the town shattered the residents' sense of security. Families who had once believed that their children were safe began to reconsider every interaction, every unknown figure in their lives. Schools and local organizations tightened security measures, implementing new protocols in response to the revelation. Meanwhile, law enforcement worked tirelessly to compile a case against the third suspect, knowing that the evidence had to be airtight to ensure justice. They conducted searches, analyzed records, and interviewed associates, gradually uncovering the disturbing layers of deception that the individual had employed. By the end of the second week, it became clear that this third person had played a central role in the crime. While the initial suspects had drawn public attention, it was this hidden figure whose actions had enabled the tragedy. Their calculated approach, their ability to remain unnoticed, and their manipulation of the young girl all pointed to a level of premeditation that shocked investigators. As the community slowly learned of the third arrest, disbelief gave way to outrage. Matlock, a town already struggling to process the first revelations, now faced an even darker truth, that danger could exist behind the most familiar faces, and that vigilance alone might not have been enough to prevent it. The stage was set for a deeper examination of the individual's motives, methods, and history, a story that would expose secrets the town had never expected to confront. As the investigation progressed, authorities began to uncover a disturbing network of hidden connections surrounding the third suspect. At first glance, the individual seemed like an ordinary member of the community, someone trusted, even admired in casual circles. But careful examination revealed a different reality. This person had skillfully concealed a history of troubling behaviors, patterns that suggested manipulation and control. Investigators pieced together a timeline that spanned months, even years, of covert interactions, many of which had gone unnoticed by those closest to the girl. Each discovery added layers of complexity and horror to the case, forcing authorities to confront the chilling depth of the crime. Digital evidence became a central focus. Phone records, social media interactions, and private messages revealed a meticulous pattern of grooming, manipulation, and secrecy. Investigators noted how the suspect had used small, seemingly innocent gestures to gain trust and create dependency, slowly isolating the girl from potential sources of support. Every file, every recorded message, told a story of calculated deceit. What initially appeared as random or coincidental interactions were now recognized as part of a deliberate strategy designed to exploit vulnerability. The more authorities uncovered, the more horrifying the scope became. Neighbors and acquaintances, once unaware of any wrongdoing, were shocked when questioned about the suspect. Some recalled odd behaviors, fleeting moments of discomfort, or minor inconsistencies that, in hindsight, fit a troubling pattern. Teachers and friends described interactions with subtle warning signs, gestures that at the time had seemed harmless, but now took on a sinister meaning. These small fragments, once dismissed, became crucial evidence in understanding the suspect's methods. Every recollection, every overlooked detail, contributed to a picture of deception that had been hiding in plain sight. Anonymous tips from the community further deepened the investigation. People came forward with stories that had previously seemed insignificant, but now revealed critical insights into the suspect's behavior. Investigators traced these claims meticulously, connecting names, locations, and dates, ultimately revealing a network of interactions that had facilitated the crime. Each new revelation sent shockwaves through the town, emphasizing just how carefully the suspect had orchestrated their actions. It became clear that the third individual had not acted impulsively. This was a calculated and premeditated series of choices, executed with precision and care to remain undetected. By the time the third suspect's history was fully examined, a chilling reality had emerged. The individual had repeatedly taken advantage of trust, exploiting relationships, and hiding behind the facade of normalcy. Detectives recognized that the girl's case was part of a broader pattern of manipulation and secrecy, underscoring the sophistication of the suspect's methods. The community of Matlock, already reeling from the initial shock, now faced an even darker truth. Evil could exist quietly among them, camouflaged by familiarity and routine. The investigation revealed not only the crime itself, but also the vulnerability of ordinary life, where hidden dangers could flourish unnoticed. This chapter of the case set the stage for uncovering the full extent of the suspect's actions, the evidence needed for prosecution, and the ultimate pursuit of justice. The arrest of the third suspect marked a turning point in the Matlock case, sending shockwaves through the town. For months, the individual had moved unnoticed, maintaining an ordinary facade while orchestrating a calculated pattern of manipulation. When authorities finally took action, the community was both relieved and horrified. Relieved that one more threat had been removed, and horrified at the revelations that followed. Law enforcement moved quickly, executing search warrants and seizing personal items, digital devices, and documents that would form the foundation of a compelling case. The atmosphere in Matlock shifted, with families realizing that danger could hide behind the most familiar faces. Inside the suspect's home, investigators discovered evidence that revealed premeditation and careful planning. Digital devices contained a trove of messages and images, each one meticulously analyzed to build a timeline of interaction with the young girl. Forensic experts uncovered deleted files and hidden accounts, showing a level of sophistication and secrecy that underscored the suspect's intentions. Personal items suggested that the individual had maintained control over the situation, keeping detailed records of interactions and carefully managing communications to avoid detection. Every piece of evidence pointed to a chilling level of awareness and calculation. Psychological profiles painted a disturbing picture. Experts described someone capable of blending into ordinary life while harboring dark impulses, a person skilled at creating trust and exploiting vulnerabilities. This profile helped law enforcement understand the suspect's motivations and methods, providing insight into why the individual had gone undetected for so long. It also shed light on the girl's experiences, offering explanations for the manipulation and fear she had endured. For the community, this insight was both terrifying and necessary, a reminder that evil could be hidden behind the most mundane appearances. The arrest and subsequent discoveries brought the town together in a strange way. While fear and anger lingered, families began to communicate more openly, sharing concerns and experiences. Schools and community organizations implemented stricter safety measures, understanding that vigilance was now a permanent part of daily life. Local leaders addressed the public, emphasizing both the importance of cooperation with authorities and the necessity of supporting the victims of such crimes. The sense of security that had once defined Matlock had been shattered, but a determination to prevent future tragedies emerged in its place. Meanwhile, prosecutors prepared for trial, carefully building a case that would withstand scrutiny. Each piece of evidence, each digital record, and every witness account contributed to a narrative that demonstrated the suspect's deliberate actions. The legal process promised justice, but the emotional toll on the girl, her family, and the town was profound. As news of the arrest spread, national attention focused on Matlock, highlighting the dangers of hidden predators and the importance of community awareness. The arrest of the third suspect was not the end of the story. It was a critical step toward accountability, understanding, and ultimately, a measure of closure for a town forever changed by events that had infiltrated even its most ordinary streets. The trial of the third suspect brought the full story of Matlock's shocking case into the public eye. Courtrooms were packed, the atmosphere tense, as prosecutors presented evidence meticulously collected over months of investigation. Digital records, messages, and forensic analysis formed the backbone of the case, revealing the full extent of manipulation and control the suspect had exercised over the young girl. Witnesses, including teachers, neighbors, and experts, testified to the suspect's behavior, describing patterns of secrecy and exploitation that shocked the community. Every piece of testimony painted a clearer picture of the calculated actions that had devastated an innocent child's life. The proceedings were difficult for the girl's family, who attended each day hoping for justice while reliving painful memories. The public followed closely, drawn to the story's mix of innocence violated and evil concealed behind a seemingly ordinary life. Experts explained the psychological effects of grooming and manipulation, providing context for the girl's experiences and helping the jury understand the depth of the crime. Each revelation, though unsettling, brought a sense of validation. The horrors the girl had endured were real, deliberate, and deserving of accountability. The courtroom became a place where truth, painstakingly uncovered, confronted lies that had long gone unnoticed. Outside the courtroom, the town of Matlock grappled with the impact of the case. Families spoke openly about fears and concerns. Schools implemented stricter safety protocols, and parents became more vigilant about their children's interactions. Community organizations offered counseling and support services, recognizing that the trauma extended beyond the immediate victim. The case had exposed vulnerabilities that had existed unnoticed, forcing residents to rethink assumptions about safety, trust, and vigilance. Even as the trial proceeded, the town began the slow process of healing, trying to reclaim a sense of normalcy in a community forever changed. The verdict, when it came, was a moment of intense relief and affirmation. The third suspect was found guilty on multiple counts, the evidence overwhelmingly demonstrating a pattern of calculated abuse. Sentencing reflected the severity of the crime, ensuring that the individual would face the consequences of actions that had irreparably harmed a child and shaken an entire town. For the girl and her family, the verdict brought a measure of justice, though it could never erase the trauma endured. The courtroom's solemnity marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of a long journey toward recovery and resilience. In the months that followed, Matlock continued to rebuild its sense of community. Conversations about child safety became more prominent. Schools and families maintained heightened awareness, and the story of vigilance and accountability spread beyond the town. Experts emphasized the importance of recognizing warning signs and fostering environments where children felt safe to report concerns. While the scars of the case remained, the town also demonstrated courage and unity, proving that even in the aftermath of tragedy, lessons could be learned and safeguards strengthened. The story of Matlock, though born from a dark and shocking event, ultimately served as a reminder of the importance of awareness, justice, and community resilience in the face of hidden dangers.